Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Nadex Morning Analysis, where we look at hotspots in the markets for today. It is August 24th, Tuesday, and it's going to be a little bit of a quieter day, at least the way things are setting up right now. Uh, my name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me from Keep Trading Simple, Mr. Brian Caprice. Before Brian and I get into it, I do need to, or we need to share this quick disclaimer that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. So what do we have on deck that's moving around this morning? Where's the volatility? And once again, we're seeing it in oil. So we are going to certainly, you can take a look at this chart of crude oil. We're going to talk about some technical levels here, but clearly we had this, it was support down at 65, around 65 and a half, 65.50 per barrel. It blew through that late last week, and oils, I mean, it went down to $62 a barrel. It climbed all the way back out. That was actually, a temporary resistance, and that's now the support again. That same level is going to be some support, but Brian and I will jump into that, and we'll take a look at some potential levels above if it continues to go higher. But with oil, a corresponding move, and hopefully by now you've got this, but if you don't, hey, while oil's going up, so is the Canadian dollar. All right, and that's the Canadian dollars in the second position on the pair. That is why the chart is going down. But you see, this huge move in the Canadian dollar. So we're going to take a look at that as well. And then we'll probably do a quick scan of the equity indices just because everything's looking to open in the green. And the S&P 500 is actually looking to open at all-time highs. It closed right near all-time highs yesterday. So if it opens in the green today, it could actually open at all-time highs. Although, and it's all indications are that it will. In the overnight session, it actually traded higher, so it's actually backed off a little bit. But we'll take a quick peek over there. I do want to remind everyone today is Tuesday, so Brian is going to be doing a full-blown session at noon Eastern. I just
Yeah,
dropped
noon.
noon. Yeah, I want to say 11 a.m. because I'm in Chicago.
It's like noon. If it's at 11, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, at noon Eastern. I just dropped the link if you're not registered. So this morning, we're just going to do a quick peek at oil, the CAD, and maybe some of the indices, and then we'll sort of, because there is no real news coming out, we'll leave it at that probably, and we'll see where things open and what else we could be looking at. Midday. So with that, Brian, here, I'm going to flip it over to you and we can just kind of jump
Sure.
through this
Yeah.
quick
I
and
mean,
get into the charts.
this is the news front for the day. You guys know that yellow is the low impact, so there's nothing really all day today. And again, with Jackson Hole later this week, not necessarily surprising. There's been some good data out there. I would say, overall in the last 24 hours, the dollar CAD is still continuing to drive to the downside. And as Todd mentioned, it's all related to oil. Actually, the Canadian data we saw just a little while ago showed that corporate profits were down quarter over quarter a little bit. So not necessarily the most positive thing for CAD, but dollar CAD is still pushing down. And there's a little bit of a retracement, in the last 60 minutes, but not really a ton. That's probably more profit taking from the European session till now. Besides that,
and it caught that level that you picked that you called out yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I'll show the level.
Okay. All right.
The only other thing we're seeing is dollar weakness. And again, if you guys were looking at the dollar index, I didn't do it for this group. I did it for my group that I do afterwards. The dollar literally bounced right off of a level as well. And again, if you guys didn't know this, like the way that I analyze my charts and the reason that I use the system that I do use is because it doesn't matter what the chart is. I don't like specific strategies just for one thing. I think if you have a strategy, I think it should work for everything, whether it be stocks, options, futures contracts, currencies. You need to have something that will reach if it only works in one area, it's probably not going to last very, very long. It's probably just kind of an anomaly more than anything else. But even the dollar index, something we don't trade, went right off of one of the same levels, the same analysis we do in every single chart. And because of that, we're seeing, again, dollar yen down, dollar Swiss down. Dollar CAD is obviously, it's down, but that's more of a CAD scenario. Aussie dollar up, again, first position. Now, that's it really for news. We really haven't gotten much more. The one thing that I will, and I just saw it a little while ago, is remember last week we talked about New Zealand and how New Zealand was supposed to raise? there's actually a statement now about, and we thought that it was because of they had a few cases of COVID, and they're like, wait a second, let's not raise yet because COVID. They're saying it had everything to do with communication difficulties rather than risks. They're talking
Yep.
about now a 50-point basis change, which is huge in
Wow.
currencies, right?
Yep.
They're saying demand has proven to be more resilient than anticipated, and we've learned lockdowns only delay spending. So again, that's a nice little statement as well. And then policy decisions won't be tightly linked to COVID. So what they're doing is they're removing kind of the COVID aspect of it, which everybody else is still stuck on. We can't make any financial decisions until we know what's going on with COVID, which again, New Zealand is a little bit ahead of the curve saying we can't control COVID. We do the best we can to control it. But again, all we're doing is delaying spending. So let's just let it go the way that it normally would. And again, raising 50 basis points is a very, very
It's
big amount.
huge.
Yeah. So
Well, the prime minister also said they're going to stop using lockdowns as a tool for
mhm.
combating it. That
Yeah,
there's
and we've
better
heard
ways
that
to
before
combat
in the past, and then again, depending on what political party is in control of that news station, it's this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. I mean, the reality is, and again, like I said, I don't want to turn this political, but
No,
you know, the way that COVID is, and it's a virus. It's the same thing. The flu has not been eradicated. We get shots every single year. COVID is a virus. It's obviously mutated at least to Delta, and actually beyond that, we actually know that there are other variants as well. It's one of those things. I mean, with the UK, they don't have as stringent of lockdowns and things like that. They had a different vaccination schedule, and they came out of COVID, and their Delta already turned and shot back to the downside. And all the experts are saying that we're supposed to see our downturn in the next month. We'll
we get
see what
flu
happens
shots
with that.
every year, by the way. Oh yeah,
You're
I
supposed
got
to.
mine
Yeah, I don't.
yesterday.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't.
I got mine.
I'm guilty. I don't. Yeah.
Well, I was at CVS and they're like, "Hey, you want a $5 coupon? Take your flu shot." I'm like,
Yeah.
"We just got them in. Hey, I'll take a $5
Sir,
coupon."
here's 50 cents off this package of
No, I got $5. It's $5, man. I'll take
25
it.
cents off this package of noodles if you let us stick you with something else, Todd. I'm in.
I'm hey.
So yeah. Yeah.
Hey.
So anyway,
I'm
going
all for
across
a deal.
yeah, I mean, jumping across the oil, that's been really the only story of the morning. Yesterday, we mentioned that, again, we did push up. Was it going to be a reversal area? There was some sellers sitting there, and there was a little bit of a pullback. But yesterday, it was just too tempting. The U.S. trader saw oil up that much since, from Sunday until yesterday morning. The temptation was just too great. They had to jump on board. And again, and I mentioned this, we talk about things. There's no guarantees in the market whatsoever. We tend to see this up, down, numerous times, right? But it's not every single time, but something that works 4 out of 5 times as long as you manage your risk. That's a good strategy. So, at this point yesterday was the up, and really it was kind of an up, because normally in between sessions we see this kind of flattening, right?
There was none.
Yeah, this was the in between session right there in that yellow area. So, not your typical in between session anyway. So it was really like an up. But, again, all things that go up must come down eventually. So, one of the areas we mentioned yesterday where there could be potential sellers was the 66, 62 level. They were there in the past. It was kind of a nice little kind of impulse correction move down last time we were there last week. So, we're there now. We're seeing a pullback a little bit. A lot of it's going to really depend on kind of what this, what the trader feels like in the first 15 minutes. It did push up in the overnight. We're seeing a pullback now as there's profit taking from the European traders out there.
For sure.
I would say with this much movement this fast, it's not like the Middle East is now locked down in a new war that we're not going to get oil shipped out. The hurricane that everybody's hearing about is on the East Coast. It's not in the Gulf, so it's not affecting any of our abilities over there. Demand will go up slightly because, again, we are going back to school, but we got, depending on where you live in the next week to 2 weeks, there will be a little bit of an increase in demand, but the market should have that factored in. So I would say today is really about positioning ourselves for the oil inventory report tomorrow. Don't forget that the API report comes at the close of business today. So check that report out. It's been right the last couple times. Not the exact numbers, but as far as the direction goes, it's been a good report to kind of check out. And if you guys don't know how to find that, just search in API oil inventory, and you'll be able to find the report. And, again, we show that tomorrow morning. But I would say right now,
by the way, I'm also going to drop in the link. Just you'll be able to find it on the Daily FX website on that economic calendar, and you'll be able to click through.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know that they had the API one over there. I just typically just go right to API, but you can actually go right to the website if you want. That's good to know. Anyway, so we're at an area right now where we talked about potential sellers. I still think, the level up top, the 67, 62 is a little bit better, but we're at an area right now. We'll see if the profit taking comes in and it kind of pulls back a little bit. With the indices kind of running wild and the dollar doing what it's doing, I would expect a bit retracement. And again, I mentioned the dollar. I just want to bring it up again. Here's the level we've bounced off of it 3 times. The dollar
Oh,
is,
yeah,
is
oh,
what?
this is the
This
U.S.
is the
dollar.
dollar. Yep,
Yeah,
this is the
yeah,
dollar
yeah.
continuing to punch down, and you guys know the rules, right? We've talked about
1,
the
2,
rules when you
3.
have these levels. Again, it's kind of like Star Wars, but it's the rule of 3 instead of the rule of 2. And again, there could be the argument right there. So again, we should be breaking through at this point, and it looks like we don't really have much kind of slowing this down until this level right here. So we got a little bit more dollar weakness today, which again is good to kind of help us continue to move through things. The dollar CAD is kind of pushing all the way down, and if I mentioned yesterday this kind of color change what I use with my students. But we talked about the 126.11. There wasn't a whole lot in here that really was showing me that really wanted to stop. It didn't mean it couldn't. It was whether oil found a bottom or not, and it didn't. It just kept moving, or I'm sorry, a top. We've now kind of taken that bounce, and this bounce has now hit 3 times, so it's a decent level. Right now, it is kind of in this, but it's not. And again, I'll make this bigger so you guys can see it. Right now, it's kind of sitting. I'm not going to be able to get that middle piece. It's so close. I'm not going to be able to do it. Right now, it's sitting like right there, so it does not really necessarily qualify. It was a little bit higher up there, and again, if that was a closing price, in 4 minutes, if it pushes back up there, that tends to be an okay confirmation. But with the session opening coming, it's one of those things. It's down in a level where we've seen buyers step in. We've seen it kind of respected twice at this point, but we're starting to come back into that same rule where we have our. I hate when it does the gigantic ones. There's 1, there's 2, and again, we're kind of in that third. Whoops. We're kind of in that third one right now. So, if we do have a collapse, there's a couple smaller levels below. But again, remember, even with, I would just say because of the Canadian bad news, we've seen this a little bit. But we got to see if oil is reversing. Again, look over here in the dollar CAD, which on a technical basis, it's already lined up that direction. So,
by the way, I just want to flip this over. And by the way, binary options, great way to play these types of moves with limited risk. I just want you to realize, you could take a look at this U.S. dollar CAD chart going, back, a couple of weeks. You can see, it wasn't moving all over the place, and then as oil dropped, the Canadian dollar got absolutely demolished. Look, that's a huge move to have it come back all the way, retrace, and we're now just sitting at this level that we'd actually called out earlier, where it now seems. Do we go back into a period of this low volatility? Is it going to stabilize some? Don't know. It's all going to really depend upon what oil does. So when we talk about these sessions, watch oil, watch the U.S. dollar CAD, some trading opportunity in there if oil starts moving around. Take a peek because there can be opportunities in both. So,
hold on, I'm drawing something special. Then you're gonna like this.
Okay.
You don't know what it is yet, but I'm gonna draw it right now.
Okay.
128, 125. Okay, so if you're wondering what I drew here, all right. So let's put this right. Let's see, right there. Okay. That happens to be the weekly call spread in the dollar CAD. So we always talk about other different things that you can trade. We already saw this coming off a higher level that we looked at. We had, again, there's your red, there's your green, there's your red. So we knew we had a confirmation turn inside of a higher time frame zone. We knew that it ended here and there was some buyers sitting there. But one of the ways you could have played this is saying, hey, listen, there's a Sunday open. Again, a lot of these kind of call spreads in particular, if you get them a little bit out of the money, those work out really, really well. As price popped up, this went out of the money, became a little bit cheaper, and look at the way that this has rallied basically all the way down, knowing that we didn't really have any strong buyers in here. So a lot of times, let's see, this is moved 200 and, let's see, to the bottom over here, 228 pips to the downside in 2 days. Now, weekly positions are nice when you have them. We don't have them for all asset classes, but the nicest thing about knockouts, especially when you grab them in the beginning of the week, is you have that long duration. There are some contracts that that have weekly call spreads. This is one of them. We knew that there was going to be a lot of destruction. We knew that oil went absolutely crazy last week. When you have all these technical factors going in, sometimes it's worth the risk to be able to take something. And knowing that we didn't really have a tested level to here, if you can grab 230, 240 pips in 2 days, it's a good risk to return, trade there. So, at that point, knowing Jackson Hole is there, that could have been, taking a couple of those contracts. You're done for the week, guys. So it's not just about binaries. Depending on the time of the week that you enter it, that, again, Sometimes the call spreads are better. Sometimes the knockouts are better. Sometimes the binaries are better. But early week, I tend to like looking at the call spreads and the knockouts. And if you're not checking those out, next Sunday night when all this stuff starts opening up for Nadex, go into your demo mode, start looking for things, and say, hey, listen, is there a potential for this to really kind of trend for the first few days? Take some of those longer call spreads and see how they work out for you. There's a lot of potential over there, and a lot of people don't trade them.
So yeah, and I just wanted to point. I'm pointing out in the platform, and Brian had to draw it on his chart. The nice thing about looking at this, because some of our call spreads have different ranges. So by clicking on the different call spreads, you can. Oh, it's what do I got going on? There we go. It'll actually shade the chart. I mean, you can see some of them are wider, some of them are larger. This is the app happens to be the one Brian was talking about. And remember, if you're buying it, it's blue. If you're selling, it's red. But it gives you the range, and you can actually mark these off on your charts, and you can be taking a look at where your call spread levels are. By the way, this was the call spreads, FX, US dollar CAD weekly. But you do have to go back and forth. I love that. It's a great lesson, Brian, checking out the call spreads and the knockouts for different levels. On Sunday, is putting them on your charts. So
and that's the thing, So that call spread didn't last from last week. These are all new from last week. They're not continuous on that one. So just FYI, the reason I drew it here instead of using the Nadex chart was so we could see where the open was on Sunday night versus having it be the full kind of price all the way across. So I wish it would start with the time so you could kind of see it for analysis reasons. But besides that, guys, I would say watch out for the indices today. They are high. Yesterday we talked about it. Let me drop it down to a 15-minute. I'm going to get us out of here in 1 minute, Todd. We talked about a bounce yesterday. You can see it bounce and came up. It ran out of steam at about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon and then started pulling back with the profit taking. We got up to 44.92. We were talking about, 4,500 in there. We're back to the same level again, and we'll see again. Yesterday, it got the boost from Pfizer getting its approval. Really today, with lack of any news, unless there's like some major surge in COVID that we didn't know or some school system got shut down, there's really not much to be negative about right now. Oil going higher is about the only thing that's negative, because that means higher gas prices. Because you know how it is, it can go up 5 cents and they jack our 5 cents, but when it goes down $3, it only moves like a penny down. Yeah, it only goes down a little bit. So I would say overall, unless there's really any negative news today, there's not much to worry about in here. Really, the only geopolitical event is Afghanistan right now, and we are coming back down to a level in the 15-minute where buyers have supported it. So that's always a great way to start off with the, kind of the new. The new day. NQ is kind of in the same situation. We talked about it getting up to 54,400. We made it to within 20 points, and we started to get that basing again right around that 3 o'clock time frame. And really, we rolled back down to exactly where we were yesterday morning. We were sitting right. Actually, I guess that's a little bit higher. We're sitting over here, and again, it did the same thing with the 15,300. It came back up, it based, and it used that as kind of its new takeoff point, and we're approaching it as well. YM. Same thing. YM, I had a couple different levels drawn in here. You can see this is where we were yesterday. We tagged the first one right at around 1 o'clock and pulled back down again. The next one we hit, it looks like over here, right at about UK Open, right? So we ended up tagging the second one on the UK Open. That would not have been green. That would have been red. So again, you can see this one was not as high as the other ones. It was already playing with areas of sellers. And again, that's what it did. It played with sellers, and again, you play with fire, you burned, and that's where we're pushing. So right now, with it probing through this level, I would say that it's kind of hit this level a couple times now. 1, 2, and 3. These two are higher. It's in a similar position where we're back where there are buyers, but this is one of those levels that we talk about which one of the 4 indices is going to be the most negative today. Right now, it's kind of tied with the ES. But this is, to me, looking the weakest because, again, we do have confirmed sellers above, and we're hitting an area, in the area of buyers here, it's, we're hitting our number 3. So, it's got some room to run. And then Russell, kind of the same thing. We talked about a little bit level right above. We missed it. We had that small trade yesterday that, again, kind of hit and was out within 15 minutes. Besides that, again, it's just, it's continuing to push. It's got a bunch of kind of choppy stuff kind of in the red zone, but again, there's a small chop, sitting right here, and you can see that that's exactly what we ended up bouncing off, is that small chop area. So it's really looking for buyers. Unfortunately, there's not really a great level. We may be able to extend this across and use this later on today, but as far as we got 2 candles to print. That would have to be a very, very big drop down again, which would scare a lot of people. Right now, I would say that it's an okay. It's a kind of a tested. It's an all right area at 2203. But right now it's looking for some buyers in here. I would say that this is going to be more at the mercy of what the bigger indices are doing for today. And we'll cover everything. We'll kind of see where we go at noon today.
Right. So that's the tease that in 3 hours, the link is in there. Come back in 3 hours. We'll see what happens after the open, and Brian will do an analysis of the charts across the board, uh, equity indices, FX, commodities. We'll take a look at all of it. With that, any questions for Nadex? Please email us customer service at nadex.com. Questions for Brian? You can email Brian as well. Support at keeptradingsimple.com. Quick little recap of what we discussed this morning. It is a bit of a quieter morning, but we're seeing the hot spots. What's moving? Oil's been moving, oil going higher, pushing that Canadian dollar higher, but crushing the U.S. dollar CAD pair as that goes lower, which is Canadian dollar strength. And we're seeing the equity indices, some sellers coming in. It might be profit taking from the European session, but all still looking to open in the red. S&P again looking to open potentially at all-time highs. Come back in 3 hours for the full-blown session, and then Brian and I will be back again tomorrow morning. With that, I want to wish everyone good luck in the market.